This must be the age of villains, as we've had not just one, but two great TV shows focused on some truly evil folks. While very different in tone and look, both deal with the nature of power and what you have to give up to get it. It must be the season of the witch, because we're talking about Agatha all along. And it must be winter, because the penguin. I don't know, this cold open got away from me. Just roll the intro. Before we get into what these shows have to say in tandem, let's look at what they have to say individually first, starting with Agatha. I admit, I was skeptical of this show at first. It's an odd case of being a spin-off of a spin-off, and those rarely work out. I was afraid that it would be WandaVision, which I like by the way, season 2 without any of the main characters. That assumption wasn't entirely off base. In the first episode, we are reminded of the framing device that I like so much in WandaVision, trapping Agatha in a police procedural. But the show quickly takes a turn into its own territory, onto a path of being completely its own thing. Although I still don't think I could recommend this show to someone who hasn't seen WandaVision first. Much like the rest of the MCU, this interconnectedness is both its biggest flaw and its greatest strength. It's just the price you pay for continuity storytelling, I guess. That one small gripe aside, if you can even call it that, I loved this show. To start with the obvious, the cast was stacked, and everyone, including the folks that I was unfamiliar with beforehand, brought their A game. Seems to me it'd be easy enough just to get that Marvel check and phone it in if you're a big name like Aubrey Plaza or Catherine Hahn or Patti LuPone, etc. But no one, as far as I could tell, did. They all seemed like they were really into it and having a ball. As for the show itself, it was so well thought out and precisely written. The twists and reveals were so well sprinkled throughout the show and wrapped everything up so satisfactorily. I was honestly shocked at how expertly it was all revealed. From Aubrey Plaza being death to the Witch's Road being a construct of Wiccan's mind, it was beautifully executed. This is something I harped on in the last episode of Pitch Please on this channel, which you should go watch. Please go watch Pitch Please. But this is why you need to know your ending when you start. You could tell these creatives knew where they were going to end up and worked backwards from there to sprinkle in just the right amount of foreshadowing and connections to tease their way to some satisfying prestige, if you will. The divination episode I found especially great, as it wove its way through the rest of the previous episodes, bringing context to something that at first glance seemed only to be a bit about the weird fortune-telling witch. And you know I like that episode because I normally hate tarot and all that other mystic shit. This show is also gay as hell, and I love it for that. Not to poke the toxic fan base or anything, but as a straight, white, cis dude, I'm so bored of seeing shows of people just like me. Representation matters, and not just because it's good for folks to see themselves on screen, and not just because it's good for little folks who look like me to see folks different from them on screen and realize they aren't so different. They're in building empathy for others, but also because, rather selfishly, I'm tired of only seeing my perspective on stories. I know what it's like to be me. I'm not a fan. I want to see new angles on the world, both real and fictional. I don't recall there being a single straight white dude in the whole show, and honestly, that's refreshing. I think my only nitpick with the show is, again, not really with the show, but with the MCU as a whole, and that's that I like these characters, but who knows when I'm going to see them again. It seems reasonable to assume that Marvel is racing towards Young Avengers, which has only probably accelerated since the Jonathan Majors debacle, but who knows how many years away that is. The MCU just has too many loose ends and cool characters floating around, waiting to be brought back. Because of the breakneck pace of the last few years, Marvel has signaled that they are going to slow down and put out less stuff, which just means longer times between seeing these characters. I'm very much in favor of Marvel slowing down though. We only had 2 Marvel-related things this year. What If Season 3 is coming out soon as well, I think. And both of them were great. Focusing on quality over quantity wins the day again, but it seems like, for 2025, Marvel is ignoring that signal and barreling through with 5 shows and 3 movies. I'm excited for them, but I do worry. If they have another rough streak, as they've had recently, it might be the death of the MCU. So cross your stretchy fingers, Fantastic Four pans out, true believers. Moving from the happy-go-lucky world of Marvel over to Gotham, Let's talk about the amazing first season of The Penguin. I loved The Batman for nailing the gritty, realist take on a character that so many other superhero films fall short of, and had high expectations for anything based on it, and this show consistently met and exceeded those expectations. Much like Agatha, every actor and every department absolutely crushed it. This show truly is a high bar for genre television. Every episode just flew by with no filler that really could have been an 8-hour movie and I would have been fully invested. But I'm also one of those sick freaks that likes 8+ hour movies. The star of the show is obviously Colin Farrell as Oscop, which I personally think is a dumb name and really a change that was not needed, but whatever. Who, under heavy makeup, gives a stunning performance. The whole show is set up to portray Penguin as a sympathetic villain, only to subvert that in the end by showing his true colors as someone who is truly evil. In fact, that perception of him as an everyman underdog is just another tool he uses to obtain the power he is so desperate for. His speech to other gang leaders sounds so much like a spiel I'd give to the people I'm trying to unionize, it's frightening. The way the character uses the truth to weasel his way to power should be studied by organizers so they can keep a watch for those that use all the right language but are not actually invested in revolution for just their own personal power. If we can't recognize people like that, we might just find ourselves and any movements we're a part of in Vic's shoes, unceremoniously smothered once these so-called leaders have what they want. Speaking of Vic, what a performance of such a tragic story. Here's a kid that just wanted a life a little better than he had, and Gotham just kicked him down at every turn. Then, just when he thinks he's found his ticket to everything he wants, and he's traded any morals he had to hitch himself to that horse, he's dumped, like trash, dead in a park. He acts as such a great audience surrogate because he is not interested in power for power's sake. He just wants the forgotten people of the city to get theirs, and for that, he has to die, because the people can never get the power they deserve. If they did, there'd be none left for the Penguins of the world. And I'm sure I've said something similar about other shows, but when the girl you're into, and is obviously into you, says to come with her to Cali, you get your ass to Cali. Will Hunting didn't end up face down in the dirt, did he, Vic? I think the only real qualm I have with this show is something that's been floating around the internet, and that's the absence of Batman. It didn't really cross my mind for most of the show, which shows you how engaging it is, until the bomb went off in the underground drug lab. Then I thought, Batman might have noticed that. But then again, as we saw in the preceding film, he is new at this. Maybe he's just too busy chasing down small-time bliss peddlers to find his way to the big fish in time. After all, he doesn't know the city as well as the gangs if, like in the comics, he left to train for his formative years. So it isn't so far-fetched that he'd be nowhere to be found. It was really strange not to have some interaction with Gordon, though. At least at some press conference or something. But this is a very small gripe, and I better cut myself off here because I could praise this show for hours. Now, I used a word a lot so far in this review, and that is because both of these shows ultimately revolve around it, and that's power. Both shows are about villains obsessed with attaining power at all costs. No matter how much power they have, it's not enough as long as someone else has more. In Agatha, we see how power affects women. All the witches realize men have the power in society and look for ways to get some back. But as they do, they are punished and cast out from society to maintain patriarchal order. The only one of the coven that starts with power subconsciously punishes them for obtaining their power and ends the journey with any power is a man. A gay man, but a man nonetheless. Some women hope to obtain power to help uplift and protect other women. But there are others like Agatha who, although they recognize the power imbalance, still only seek power to hold others like her down. She hopes to become part of the system, not to abolish it. In the end, Agatha doesn't get what she wants, and finds a slight hope of redemption. Oz, on the other hand, gets exactly what he wants, and loses everything worthwhile. He is so blinded by his psychotic pursuit of power that any humanity he has must be killed or locked away. Sophia, on the other hand, is born into that power, and thinks she's above it, and that it's unimportant, until it's turned on her. Then she realizes just how devastating it can be, and even just by association can stain your soul and tarnish your humanity. Even then, she is addicted, and tries to use what's left of her power to escape and get some revenge as she climbs out of the cesspool and back on top. But that stink doesn't come out. The problem isn't these people, but instead the systems of power, both in the fictional worlds and our real world, that are inherently based on exploitation. Can power be used for good? Yes, obviously, but only when it's wielded properly, horizontally, from the bottom. Otherwise, it's a corrupting force that harms those exploited by it and those wielding it. Anyway, I should wrap this thing up. What did you think of these shows? Excited for more? Comments, questions, concerns, critiques, death threats, they all go in the comments below. And subscribe and all that jazz. And as always, death to the algorithm.